nothing else. Not whether the trains are late, not whether Arsenal won last night. You won't. You will always look at causes, but maybe not in the proof of God. Why?
We're going to take our next two questions. Right at the back, blue jacket, grey hoodie.
The question is only relevant if Professor Norman, if he doesn't mind, can ask us, did you ever believe in God at any time or a creation?
Yes, that's a nice question. Takes us in a bit of a direction, yeah. I believed in the existence of God for 20 years.
I think he's got another question to ask on top of that.
The question was only relevant to that answer.
Okay, yeah.
The question is, what was your bounded or rationality on the premise that you believed in God at that time, and what swayed you to now, and what's rational now compared to then?
Yeah, I guess very simply, first of all, I was brought up as a religious believer. And I was brought up, first of all, for my first 10 years in the Baptist church. I was brought up as a Christian, and then after that, when we moved house, I started going with my great aunts to the Methodist church. And of course, I didn't begin with reasons. I began as a religious believer because my parents thought it would be nice for me to be brought up as one, and it was many years later that I discovered that they didn't really believe it, but they thought it would be nice if I did. And it wasn't that there was some blinding flash that suddenly made it occur to me. No, I was mistaken. What happened was that increasingly, as I recognised the need to come up with reasons for what I believed, rather than just accepting them unquestioningly, I realised it became more and more difficult to come up with those reasons. Because this is very, very relevant to the whole point about the existence of society, this society, and the reason and debate society. The process of greater understanding was the recognition that you do need good reasons for holding such a belief. You can't just accept it uncritically. And the more I thought about it, the more I recognised that the reasons simply were not convincing.
What were these reasons?
Well, the sorts of reasons that Hassan has talked about, reasons in terms of some notion of a divine creator which might explain the existence of the physical universe. Also, I guess, ideas about something that might lie behind the deep and moving experiences that human beings have, the sense of awe and wonder when you look at the beauty of the night sky, the sense of beauty when you look at a beautiful landscape, the sense of wonder when you look into the eyes of a non-human living thing, into the eyes of a fox that you meet in the woods or something like that. But what I came to recognise, that though life is enriched by those sorts of experiences, they're just as valid and just as important, and that you don't need some further belief in order to validate them. Those things are enough in themselves.
Sorry, so do you believe that, without all due respect, you find your parents irrational?
No.
Why not? Why not?
Well, because as I say, I discovered subsequently they didn't have any religious belief either, but they thought it would be nice if I had if I went to Sunday school, and I guess what they hung on to was the idea that your moral values are more securely based if they're based in some kind of religion. What I've come to believe is that you don't need that kind of religious basis for your moral values, that they, like everything else, come from the world of our everyday experience, our interaction with other people, and our sensitivity to other people and other people's needs and other people's feelings.
Okay, we're going to take our next question. The Miss right there.
My question is for Hassan. So I follow your argument that there has to be a creator if there's something that's been created. So my question now is, the motion is that the belief in the creator is rational, but where is it rational, the additional things that come with the belief in the creator? Like the belief in homosexuality being wrong, or the belief in, go to church on Sunday, and things like that. Where does that come into that argument of a creator being rational?
I deliberately stayed away from that because that's not what the motion was, but I will give you the answer that I firmly believe in. The question is about whether morality is objective or subjective. If morality is in the eyes of the believer, the beholder, then it can change according to time, according to place, according to social pressure. Therefore, the fascists would say they're right. And we would find people who believe in cannibalism. We would find people who would justify their view and say morality is subjective. But if there is a creator, then it's the creator's plan, the creator's will, the creator's guidance that sets that morality as objective. Good, bad, right, wrong come from the creator. But the discussion of what belief, if any, you follow as a result of this is a separate discussion. I am a Muslim, and that's not really the point of today's discussion, but that's what I believe. Yeah, and I can discuss with you about why I believe it to be the truth, but that's not today's discussion.
But ultimately, for some people, the belief in a creator ultimately means that that creator has set morals in place, and that's and why there's so many different, moralities, like and schools of thought, if there's just this one.
And then I'll say that therefore we have to unify on the way we get to the creator. It can't be through a blind faith, a leap of faith, or just because someone told you. It can't be because of imitation. It's got to be because you independently came to the conclusion. And because you independently came to the conclusion, you would have this in your mind. It cannot be like the creation. Therefore, we would now leave anthropomorphism. We would now leave the idea that this creator has a son or is like a human being. We would leave those ideas because that would be limitations. And as we would refine the idea, we would come to another conclusion. Could there be two of them? If there was two, then one of them did the sun, one of them did the rain. But the fact that the second one can't do the sun is a limitation on him. Therefore, he can't be the unlimited, he can't be the creator. Comes down to being one unlimited creator. That helps you refine the thinking. If you don't come to it by yourself, you will come up with whatever you feel like. And I think that's where we need to go, and maybe Belief and Reason would like to discuss that as another topic.
Our next question, got it right at the back. Very high, yeah.
If you can assume that a creator or a prime mover exists, does it have to be something which you define as a god, i.e. something that is some sort of agent with an intent and a point of focus and an interest in people's lives and opinions, rather than an alternative, you would have something like, as has already been described, M theory, or things as part of theoretical physics that might be extrapolations of established physical models. Does the prime mover have to be something like a god, and if so, why?
Okay. There's a discussion about whether a creator is mechanical or has a will, has a choice, decided to do so. And if we're going to place limits on this unlimited thing without it telling us, because remember, right now we're discussing devoid of information from this thing, then we can't make the mistake of deciding what we want it to be. We can't say it's mechanical or not, but we can say this. If we're going to say it's different to the limited, dependent, needy, contingent creation, if it's going to be different to that, it can't be anything other than unlimited, therefore it must have chosen to do so. Rather than being constrained by limitations placed upon it that makes it mechanical. Therefore, your question of whether this prime mover, and I'm very careful not to use the phrase because I disagree with Aristotle, but prime mover, if as in your phrase, I say it is definitely an independent, it is definitely something that has will and has chosen through that intelligence and the will to make this reality. But that's because I've come through a thinking process that says a limited reality is created by something that is completely different to it. It is unlimited, it is independent, it is self-sufficient, it is one, it is eternal, it is azali, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Professor, would you like to
Can I just respond to that? Yes, because I think that's a very good question. And it did seem to me there was a very clear jump in the line of thought that Hassan was presenting there, which I think is very revealing as a response to that question. What I took him to be saying was this prime mover, or whatever we want to call it, this original cause, cannot be dependent on anything else. It must be independent, it must be unlimited. Therefore, it must have the qualities of will and choice. That simply doesn't follow. And that's, sorry?
Can I interject really quick? Because,
please, yes.
I'm not a physicist, but I presume that M theory, the suggestion that membranes themselves,
yes.
By definition, do not have a will.
Yes.
You're saying, Hassan, that a prime mover creator exists.
From the
it
fact
must
that
have a will. It must be something by definition.
I would like to make it very clear. To say that it is a mechanical prime mover, to strip it of will, is something that we have no evidence for. In the absence of that evidence, of the absence of the guidance, in the absence of revelation, we therefore are duty bound to leave it with all the aspects of being unlimited, which includes choice.
This is because you're talking about your imaginary ghost friend. You say you can't comprehend what it's like whether he has any eyes or not because it's outside your experience. Then you're doing exactly the same thing by attributing.
No, I'm saying you are.
Something that you have no time.
I'm saying that you are. I'm saying that you are by saying it's a mechanical thing because you're trying to strip this thing that you have no knowledge of, no understanding of, and you're removing something from it. You're the one removing will and choice and saying, well, how do you know it has it? But why remove it and then say it has it? All you know is
You're
that
presupposing that it has will and choice in the first place.
Okay, but I'm saying that you can't strip it of will.
It's not. It's stripping it. It's only to be stripped.
Is it possible we could let Hassan Chaudhry finish his point?
A mechanical prime mover is something stripped of an attribute.
He didn't say it was mechanical.
But that's what a prime mover is.
No.
All I'll say, just to keep it very simple, is I'll stick to the point that I've made consistently throughout tonight's debate. That we know from the reality that we see that this reality is caused, is created. We need whatever created us to tell us. In the absence of that, we cannot think about it because it is irrational to think without information.
So to tell us what?
To tell us about it. To tell us what is...
By what means?
But that's another discussion. We're in the absence of that discussion. We're in the absence of that information.
Why do you then invoke the idea that the creator has to tell us about itself?
Meaning you can't
think about it. Response we're going to take from Hassan Chaudhry.
You can't think about it unless it tells you, which is why I gave the example of someone knocking on your door.
Presupposing that it has a will and an intent to tell you about itself.
No, you're the one presupposing by saying it doesn't have it. You raised the question and said, well, how do we know it's not a prime mover, mechanical? I said, why is it that you're stripping it of it?
The point is we have no way of telling because it's outside time.
But then do you agree in a creation in the first place?
I think that it's meaningless because it's outside any means of measuring it. So the concept of something existing outside of time, saying
who made your specs?
What's further north than the north?
I like to ask you, who made your spectacles? Did it have a cause?
Yeah, it did, but
it had a beginning and it didn't make itself. Now let's take it back. Let's take it back. Perspex, whatever it is, let's take it back.
We're talking about something that exists in physical reality. You've used lots of examples, but this is talking about something in physical reality. But the creator isn't, is it? It's outside of tangible physical reality, beyond space and time by your reckoning.
With respect to Rupon, can I just say one more?
Sure. Okay, sorry, I don't
know. Not at all. And we can continue this afterwards. And I think it's good that... and we can also make sure that this is done in the spirit of discussion. I think it's important that we have a discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've got the utmost respect for Richard for his views and his consistency. Yeah, but let me say this to you then. When we say that there is something that you see, and the example I like to give is of a painting. The painting does not give you anything other than the painting to test, to observe. But we come to the conclusion of a painter. And that's what I'm trying to use here. I'm trying to use something that's very natural, very rational. You come to the conclusion from something that something else made it, there was a cause. That's why I'm talking to you about a creator for this universe.
Okay, we're going to move on with our questions. People who haven't asked questions. Black jacket.
Question to Hassan. According to your steps, it makes sense that you have to have an infinite creator. But at the same time, if we look rationally through another line of thinking, we know that infinity doesn't exist in this world. So looking at it from that point of view, we should exclude infinity totally. It shouldn't even be an option. So could you enlighten us?
Okay. We understand that this reality that we're in has no infinity, but that doesn't mean we can now make assumptions about what is outside of this reality. And that's
making an assumption to say it can be infinite when we cannot sense infinite.
The only thing we're saying is that it's different to this reality because it's not bound by the things that it made. If it made the law of gravity, is it bound by gravity? if it made space, made time, made